Hello, welcome back to Up the Villa, Aston Villa in Europa League action, and I'm delighted to be joined by Michael Statham, Dutch football expert and Villa fan. That's not a bad combination, mate.
Yeah, perfect for podcasts like this, and I guess.
So, talk to me about Dutch football in general. What's the landscape looking like? Who are the top teams in Dutch football at the minute?
Dutch football is great for young talents and exciting football. There's always loads of goals in Dutch football games. So for me, getting into the league, gosh, like over 10 years ago, 15 years ago, seeing the young players come through, I just thought it was a bit of a draw. And I mean, that's the reason why I'm doing this like English language podcast website and that Football Anya, because yeah, there was a kind of like gap in the market for it. And what's the landscape at the moment? I mean, Dutch football's on the rise. The league coefficient, people know UEFA coefficient. Dutch league went from being like 15th best in Europe to the 6th best in Europe over the past 5 years. So it's a league on the rise. I'm not saying it'll be the best league in the world, but it has grown in strength. Players have stayed longer in the country and developed there, and I think that's been quite an exciting time for the national team developing, but also watching the clubs do well in Europe.
I mean, when I think of Dutch football, Ajax are the ones that really sort of catch my eye for, like, you know, how they used to play football was sensational. And I remember when we was in the Conference League, we were played Ajax, and they were like down the bottom of the league. And you know, I'm looking at the league table now, and they're back near the top. So does that happen from time to time with sort of like PSV and these type of teams, or is there general like a core group of teams that are always near the top?
Good question. No, generally that doesn't happen. It was a bit of a freak when Ajax were like bottom of the table come like early October. That was weird. And now we've got like a bit of a return to the order, if you like. PSV, Ajax and Feyenoord always the biggest teams in the Netherlands, teams with the most money, most revenue, most fans. You go to the Netherlands and you ask someone which team they support, generally you're going to hear one of those three teams. As well as some of the others, of course. You've got in more recent times, AZ Alkmaar have had a really good kind of 15, 20 years. Have been in Europe a lot over that period of time. Obviously, Villa played those. You've had Twente, that was a bit of a weird one. They did go down to the second tier and they've come back up. They're also in that kind of top 5 biggest clubs in the Netherlands. But generally, no, you've got like that hierarchy and it's kind of remained the same. But you've got players that will remain within the league and grow and go up the ladder, if you like, in the league before they then make that big move, such as to a Premier League team, which is what a lot of the players try and do. A lot of players in the Netherlands, they either aim to go to Serie A, Barcelona, or the Premier League. Those are the kind of like those dreams they speak about when they grow up as players.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Talk to me a little bit about Feyenoord sort of success over the years. Where do they sort of stack up compared to the other teams?
I mean, Ajax have always been that most celebrated team with their academy, with all the prizes they've won over the years. Feyenoord kind of come second within that. PSV are more kind of successful in modern times. Feyenoord are more historic, I guess, and have had some success in most recent years, but haven't won as many leagues as PSV and Ajax. They've always got that massive fan base. They're always filling the Kuip. Always known to be one of the most, if not the best, atmosphere in the Netherlands. I think any Villa fans watching the game but going over to the Netherlands will notice that when they went to the Amsterdam Arena, when they went to Alkmaar, they're good atmospheres, but I think you'll find that Feyenoord's the best. And I think that they'll give Villa a really, really good game.
Talking about Feyenoord then, I mean, that's who we're playing, but how good are they at the minute? I'm looking at the league table, and I'm a football fan. Obviously, I like football in general. I watch different leagues, but this is the league that I just don't really ever watch. So, you know, I'm looking on like SofaScore and I'm seeing they're top of the league, and I'm thinking, okay, like there must be right decent. So, how good are they? And sort of like, is their position like true to where they can be challenging this season?
Yeah. I'd say that Feyenoord is still struggling a little bit from living within the shadow that Arne Slot left. Slot was a brilliant manager. We've seen it now with Liverpool, that how capable he is. And I think since he left, like, it's always been about how can we replicate it? How can we keep the things that were there before? Now you've got Robin van Persie as manager now. who is in only his second job as like a senior manager. He was with a mid-table side last season, Head and Vane, and Feyenoord were quite quick to pick him up, I think, because of the name. But I don't think he's quite one of those managers, thinking Steven Gerrard, for example, who was a great player but not a good manager. Van Persie has got something about him, but he's still definitely a rookie manager. He brings all this experience of being a world-class player, but as a manager, he's still making mistakes, still learning. And if I talk about Feyenoord this season, an example of it, they started really well in the league, but when it came to their first Europa League game, they were away at Braga in Portugal. He decides to rotate most of his starting 11, and then they lose the game 1-0, really flat, not good enough. And then in the media after the game, he said, well, the media were asking me when this player was going to start, and when this player was going to start, and I wasn't playing them. And it's funny because now I play them all together, and look what happens. And it's like, well, yeah, you can't rotate that many players as Feyenoord. Maybe it's Manchester United you could, but not Feyenoord, and expect a good outcome. So I think he's still making mistakes. The manager's still learning. He's had the same problem with his goalkeepers. He's got 2 brilliant goalkeepers, but he mucked this up at Head and Vane before. He had 2 senior goalkeepers and said that he wasn't going to have a number one, whereas actually what he does need to do is have a number one, give them confidence, kind of things that you look on the outside and go, I don't think I'm like a pro manager or anything, but isn't that a bit obvious that you wouldn't do something like that? And I think he's gone like hard on his approach and kind of learned from his mistakes. So he's a more of a balanced coach now. And when you ask about the strength of Feyenoord, yeah, I mean, I can get into how they're getting on the league, some of their best players, but I think they have got the best squad in the Dutch league this season.
So Van Persie last season, did he have a really good season at where he was? Did he have a good league position finish?
Well, he was poached by Feyenoord throughout the season, so he didn't actually get to finish that first season. He started with Heerenveen being really super attacking and thought it might blow teams away, and then ended up kind of losing a lot of games away from home. And Feyenoord kind of took him on, and he kind of changed that approach, and it was quite successful straight away because. And I wish I'd checked this stat before come on, but I do believe Feyenoord have won the most points since Van Persie took charge at Feyenoord out of all the teams in the Dutch league. Such as has been his impact. And I think this is the season that Feyenoord could win the league. So fans might be asking, well, maybe he was right to rotate in Europe. Is our league the priority this season? But that is a shame. Feyenoord always love to do well in Europe. It is always a priority for Dutch teams to do well in those competitions. So yeah, he's been quite well received, I think, by Feyenoord fans. But equally, I think if this season doesn't go well and that these kind of mishaps continue, then he could be out of a job. But I think he'll be there a little while, and I think he will continue to grow and learn from his mistakes.
Yeah, what's his style of play like then? Does he fit in with like the culture of the club, or is he bringing something totally different?
He's tried to fit in with what Feyenoord expect, and I think if he had gone that gung-ho approach at Feyenoord, I think it would have gone badly. It's a 4-3-3. It's very typical, very standard for Dutch teams. You've got a lot of focus on the wing players that will use their tricks. They'll get balls into the box. It's very possession based. And yeah, I think you will see that the midfielders have got loads of quality. That's definitely the best midfield in the Eredivisie. And it's got quality in there. They're spoilt for the riches in those positions. Defensively, they're okay. I think they lack a ruthless striker, and I think they could have improved in the left winger position, given they lost Igor Paixão over the summer. A player that was linked with Villa has gone to Marseille. He was the best player in the Eredivisie, Igor Paixão, definitely. And yeah, they struggled a little bit offensively, but they have won games. Like they've won them kind of like 2-0 or by 1 goal, like 1-0 on Sunday when they beat Groningen away from home.
So who is like their best player then? Because I know Timber's brother plays for him. So yeah. What's he like as well? Is he really good?
Yeah, there's a few players I kind of pick out. I think you've just said there, Quinton Timber. Timber's good. He's quite similar to his brother because I watched them both come through at the same time. And they are similar in that they're quite physical, quite intense players, really good on the ball. Like they come to the Ajax Academy. And by the way, yes, he is playing for Feyenoord, their arch rivals, and did come for the Ajax Academy. But I really like Timber. I think he would suit a Premier League team. He would suit the physical style. and will do well in this game because of that. He didn't get the move he wanted over the summer, but he's still out in these kinds of games, to try and impress. I hope that Feyenoord will go full strength because you'll see a player like him in the team. I think a player that could score, Sem Stein. He's an attacking midfielder. He plays just behind the striker. He's got a great nose for goal. That is like his biggest strength. He loves the goal. Really good in the box with his finishes. Really good with free kicks as well. He's a captain of Feyenoord. He came in this season from FC Twente, but he's gone straight in, become the captain, still scoring goals. And it's a good coup patch for Feyenoord to keep him within the Dutch league. And then you got one more player who I think will be like the star if it goes well, or it might go completely wrong, and he puts a few in Rose Ed. And it's Haj Musa. Haj Musa is really skillful, technical player, will take players on, likes to hug the touchline, really good touch. He is electric when he's on form. And I think you'll probably find he'll do a bit of everything. Like he will fluff across and put it like way out of reach, and then next minute he will be really precise, and he's probably put him in the top corner. He's that kind of player. So keeping him quiet is going to be really important for Villa. Whether that's Martin or Dino that starts at left back.
Top stuff. I love hearing you talk about this. It's brilliant, mate. So before we get on to like the matchup of the game, you mentioned the stadium earlier on. Villa are familiar in '82 with this stadium, so
historic.
I mean, anyone that can just shin it maybe, and Villa get the winner, it would be quite fitting. But what can Villa fans expect from this stadium? And I'll give you a question then. On a scale of 1 to 10, how sort of hostile is the stadium?
I'd say an 8. I think hostile, like, I reserve that for the atmospheres you get over in like Turkey. That for me, that's up there. I've been to Villa Park on its day a number of times, and I think it can be a good atmosphere. If I'm being truthfully honest, sometimes it can go a little flat. Whereas I think Feyenoord, like, it will be great the whole time, and it will be. I think vociferous is a good word for it. Feyenoord fans will give it some. I've been to the stadium. I did think of all the stadiums I've been to, it's the best atmosphere I've witnessed. Like a lot of fans standing up, for example. You hear cheering all the way around the stadium, singing all around the stadium. It's not just one part. So I think that's what will make it a bit special. And hopefully the fans have a great time going over there as well.
I think normally when we do these, it's normally you give us the insight onto, for example, Feyenoord, and then we think about how we think what you're saying can match up. So you can have the floor then. Obviously, knowing everything about both teams, what do you kind of expect to see from this game?
I don't want to make like too many predictions because I feel like I'll have egg in my face, afterwards. But I think I've done enough in my time with Dutch football to at least give it a good go, and I won't be too far off. I think Feyenoord will play well. I think they'll go full strength this time, given they didn't the other time. They're at home. They always do well at home when you're at Feyenoord. It's a bit of a thing. They keep their good home record. Villa have been struggling, but they did do well against Fulham at the weekends. Makes me think, are the goals back? But I also think Feyenoord could put Villa under some pressure. And that's why I'm kind of excited about this game. I think it's going to be a really good matchup because of how both teams kind of are at the minute. Feyenoord kind of doing better than expectations, keeping games quite tight. They have got goals in them, but they won't blow teams away. And you've got Villa who, if they're caught on the ball in those positions, Feyenoord will punish them. But Villa have got their own strengths. I think they can put the defence under pressure. They are quite a solid unit at the back. Just a really good test for both teams. I think that's what makes it quite level because Villa are away from home.
Yeah, I think so too. I really want to see Villa rock up there and just play well. I think we've done well away from home in Europe, but we've had a couple of those like the Monacos and the Bruges where it was quite flat, and I just really want us to own the Europa League. Really, I mean that top you've got on, go ahead Eagles,
go
right?
Eagles.
Yeah, I mean we're playing them as well. So where does that name come from? Because I find that name just like wild. Really, it's totally different. And how good are they?
Go ahead, Eagles. Do you know what? I always look these kind of things up, how they got their name. There's not really much of an explanation. Go ahead, Eagles. Maybe someone could prove me wrong in the comments or something. But I feel like there's not actually a reason. But they're a team based in Deventer. That is like, decent sized town in the Netherlands, but even not a big place. How good are they? I mean, if Villa don't go and beat them, like that is pretty poor. Like this is a difference in levels here. But Go Ahead Eagles did have a really good season last season. They won the Dutch Cup. They won their first prize in their history, kind of like a Crystal Palace. Qualify for Europe, appearing in the league phase group stage for like the first time, like Palace. But Go Ahead Eagles, they lost a couple of good players over the summer, but have kept hold of quite a number of them. Their problem is they lost their manager, who was really good tactically, and they have a very thin squad. So they're now juggling with 2 games a week, and they are really struggling. But I'd say for them, there's one player to watch out for, and that's Jakob Brum, who's linked with Celtic over the summer. So, you've got a player that could play for Celtic in there. There are some good players. He's really like creative, drops deep. He can play in the 10, holds the ball really well, really good eye for a pass. So I look forward to how he gets on against Villa, see if he can do it at a higher level. But how good are they? Yeah, Villa need to beat them. But they'll give Villa a good game. I think, they won't be rolled over.
No, I think one thing I learnt from the Conference League is don't underestimate anyone. I remember Zrinski Mostar rocking up and parking the bus and not being able to break them down. So, yeah, every team in Europe is just, and they've always got a striker that, he's just never heard of him and he just can turn it on and everything like that. So, touch on Villa then. You are a Villa fan. So, kind of what have you made of the start to the season? Have you been a little bit worried, or how are you feeling now after sort of Fulham and we've sort of kind of looked like we're steadying the ship a bit?
Yeah, it has been quite flat, hasn't it? And almost like I feel like something has happened, and I think much has been made of Emi Martinez's situation, other players potentially going over the summer, and that's where my gut feeling is. Like football's a confidence game, and I've seen some of those players come to life against Fulham after scoring a goal or two, and all of a sudden it all changed. Does that set the tone for the season? I think it does. I think we do get better from here, but thinking of the season as a whole, like, I still think some problems will persist. Like we aren't really keeping clean sheets again, and that kind of thing. So how do I feel about it? I think we'll still have a good season. As for like, potentially winning a competition, which we've been longing for such a long time. I just really worry that the weight might go on because we don't look as elite as we were. We would take on anyone, wouldn't we, and beat them. And that's what I worry about with Villa at the minute.
Yeah, I just feel like get through the group stage of this and just grow into it, and then
grow into it. Be good.
Yeah, just try and just harness energy from doing well in Europe. Really, one player that I really like at Villa is Ian Maatsen. He for me, I like him. I love that he can invert, and I just want to see more of him. But Emery prefers Digne defensively. Marlon, I'd love to get your thoughts on Marlon because he's a player that he's so powerful in and around the box. I feel like he's got that bit of thrust in there, but it's like, where does he play? And then touch on Bogard, who I think he's kind of like coming of age a little bit at Villa. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on those three?
Yeah, so obviously seeing some Dutch players at Villa has been quite exciting for me personally, watching Dutch football. I think, first of all, for Maatsen and Marlon, having seen them both play for the Dutch national team as well in quite recent times, Maatsen was brilliant when he was able to go and attack Spain in the Nations League. So there was like a 3-3 draw. Maatsen, if I'm not mistaken, did score a goal in that game. But I thought generally, on my memory of that game, he was probably one of the Netherlands' best players because of how he could get forwards, technical ability on the ball. But he also was helped by having someone out wide on the wing. A Villa, because we're so narrow at times in those attacking areas, you're relying a lot then on the fullbacks to try and get forward, but they don't know whether this perhaps a little bit harsh. There's a reason why this is the case. But it's like they've kind of come forward a bit to be on the ball, but then they can't go and maraud forward. But they also aren't a left back. And he's kind of caught between being a left back and a left wing back. You want him to be a left wing back, Maatsen. He can really then attack. So it's a shame not to see that unleashed in him. He's like working in tandem with like Cody Gakpo, for example, for the Netherlands. And he can then come inside and send Maatsen on the overlap, and that sort of thing. As for Marlon, really frustrating for the Netherlands. One game will play really well, the next game won't. We have a lack of right wingers. Marlon seems to get selected by default because we have a lack of options out there at the moment. His best form, though, I watched him play for PSV. His best position is playing as a striker in the front two. When he was playing with that PSV, he was getting goals. He could work well with a striker. He didn't have to then just be the focal point in the box. There was more to it, and he is fast and can play on the left shoulder. Villa aren't getting that side out of him, but if you expect him to play as sort of a right midfielder, also you're not getting the best out of him. As a right winger, he needs to be out wide and really wide. But same problem again. Villa aren't playing necessarily with the width that would suit that style. So that's where you're not getting the best out of those players. As for Bakardo, like, he's like molded by Unai, and you can tell that there's this player that can play CDM, can play centre back, right back, whatever's needed. Is he in contention for the Dutch national team yet? No, not yet. Needs to be a regular, doesn't he? But there's certainly a player in there that over time, does he become I'm asking you a question now. Does he become a first team player, or is he always going to be a rotation player?
I think now we're sort of finding out where he can actually play well, and I think it's in central midfield, and he's not even just playing as like a CDM. Against Fulham, he was sort of on the left-hand side, and McGinn was the deeper player. So I think, like you mentioned, he's being moulded by Emery, and right now he's ahead of Barkley. Would you rely on him a bit more than Onana? I mean,
probably.
There's not much at the minute. There's not much difference, is there? And I think the fact that he's pure Emery, and he obviously must listen to everything Emery says, and Emery's moulded him. I think he could be, because I think when the team sheet came out at the weekend, you were like, okay, Bogard, no problem. So I think there's obviously more to come from him, because I think there's areas probably where he's got to be maybe a little bit more technical at following runners or tracking the right areas to position himself. But he's a player that I think I'm really enjoying watching him grow as a player. And yeah, I agree with Marlon. I think for me, he's better straight down the middle, and I think we'll probably see him there against Feyenoord, to be honest, because I think he played pretty well against Bologna, and he just needed that goal, didn't he, Marlon? It felt like the performance was kind of there, but it needed that little finishing touch to make it go, right, great. Let's see more of what you've got to offer as well, really. So thank you for coming on, mate. I mean, your knowledge is just like first class, and obviously
all of this sort of stuff. If you asked me about the Premier League teams, I couldn't tell you much other than about Villa.
Yeah, but mate, your knowledge on sort of like everything is like very, very good. So it's just great to hear your insight, really, mate. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, you're very welcome, and up the Villa, but also kind of written final. It's going to be a bit of a weird one for me on Thursday.
Yeah, you're allowed to say up the Villa now. So yeah, cheers, mate. Thank you.